I wasn't here for intros. I'm from Salesforce, and I'm a technical architect on the sales team, and I talk about headless all the time.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
Awesome.
I'll stay later if you guys want to talk about it.
No, we'll get you in and you can get some more. Okay. We can get you ask more questions here.
Sounds good.
You in the area close by?
Yeah, I live in Alabama.
Oh, that's nice.
Awesome. And we have, for people who haven't heard, we have someone from Salesforce who works on Headless. And what's your name?
Eric.
Eric. So he'll be also able to answer some questions for any of y'all. Let me just fix the presentation. So I want to make this a little interactive. So anyone have been to a TDX in the past or went to the current TDX, you can raise your hand or shout out in the chat.
How many from the room? TDX? 1, 2, over to
Yes, Trish, I saw you last year. I didn't go this year though.
Okay.
Remember we were in the hackathon?
Yes, that
Hold on.
hackathon was really fun. This time it was virtual hackathon, but last year was in person. And
You should tell the highlight about the TDX. Krish was dancing on the stage.
No way.
Boom.
The action.
Like that we missed you. There's a party.
that's
thing.
you have to only go to TDX.
Oh yeah,
you
okay.
can see it.
Something remain at TDX. That's
Right.
TDX exclusive, okay.
Yeah, the recap doesn't go into that.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, the big theme was Headless 360. First wave of APIs, MCP, CLIs. So headless means like the head is the UI of Salesforce. So headless means they're starting to move away from the UI and you can access Salesforce data from different interfaces that you can create through APIs, through MCPs, through CLI tools, through pretty much anywhere. And Slack's a big focus too, which I'll show you in the next slide. So this is this Headless 360 Salesforce Agentic Enterprise architecture. So you can see here that Slack is the system of engagement, but there are also other system of engagements such as Teams, ChatGPT, or Claude. And you can also interact through different Agentforce agents, employee agents, and is same customer 360 and data 360. And you have the Salesforce trust layer. So as you can see, the headless is showing a lot of people can access Salesforce data through Slack primarily, which is a big push nowadays. And you can deploy Agentforce anywhere through voice, through mobile, through web, through WhatsApp, through third-party sites. And this is the new agent builder. I just took a screenshot of one of the slides, but as you can see, you can add deterministic logic, and it looks more like a PRD. This is Slackbot. So Slackbot, it's a new release. You can ask Slackbot anything, and it can connect to different sources of data. So this is also where a lot of end users can primarily interface to Salesforce directly. So instead of logging into Salesforce, you can create a channel and you can see a lot of different data. You can communicate with different stakeholders, surface reports, custom LWC. So the Agentforce experience layer is also something that's moving into that direction where you can create custom components and surface that into different UIs like Slack, Teams, ChatGPT, or Claude. From what I've learned, you can create different components similar to Lightning Web Components and put them within your chat experience when your stakeholders are communicating with the Slack bot or any natural language interface. Also, a really cool highlight is building React apps are starting to become native in Salesforce. Right now, it's only in sandboxes. And that's pretty cool, as you can create custom interfaces for your end users to interact with Salesforce data, which is doubling down on that headless theme, as we're seeing. Another thing that's really awesome is setup with Agentforce. So I want to see if I can go to that link.
Yeah. English the stuff open here. Second.
Okay. How should I share that? I should share this setup. Okay. So here is a trail mix from TDX, where you can see there's a setup with Agentforce. I clicked it and it went to a different link. So let me share this tab instead. Okay. But setup with Agentforce is essentially a natural language interface. So instead of you typing in to set up the exact keywords that you need, like, oh, where are my sandboxes? Where are my recently run Apex classes? Or anything that you might need in setup, you can just ask Agentforce, and then that would redirect you to that. So let me see if I can share this trailhead.
You might want to mention it's in beta.
Yeah, this is in beta as well. So as you can see here, this is the setup, and it says welcome your username, and you can say, oh, like you can also create custom objects from here, which is pretty awesome, but you can also it can surface different features within Salesforce. So yeah, this seems pretty useful. Or should I play it?
Confirm the proposal to create the object. Next, you want to set up access for your new custom object. Ask the agent to create a new permission set with the permissions that you specify. The agent displays a draft permission set. Simply respond to make updates. Or confirm to create it, saving you dozens of clicks. The next day, one of your users is having trouble accessing the new property custom object. Ask the agent for help troubleshooting the user's permissions. The agent confirms that your user doesn't have the access he needs. So you work with the agent to make sure your user is granted the right permission set. Finally, the agent can help you stay on task in setup by answering questions and sourcing information directly from Salesforce Help. And it can even bring you directly to relevant setup and Salesforce Go pages. Setup with Agentforce can help with many of your daily tasks. See just some of its current capabilities, with more to come in the future. When you're ready.
So as you can see here, you can even create and manage flows, create landing pages, reset user passwords, which is super common. And also permission issues are super common in Salesforce. So doing that all with Agentforce is pretty awesome. But yeah, as someone mentioned in the previously, this is a beta feature. TDX, sometimes they like to show the bleeding edge of things. So where things are starting to go.
I guess that's why they have the slide all the time. Make all purchasing decisions, right? Based on what it is.
Yeah, forward-looking statement.
Forward-looking statement stuff. So there's a comedy group, so it works.
Yeah, but yeah, we have a forward-looking statement.
Yeah, forward-looking statement. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Salesforce is a public company. Do not make any purchasing decisions off of this. Let's go back to the. Yes, this is another cool link.
Share the slides again.
Oh, I have to share this tab. So another cool feature that I got to see a demo of at TDX was this one. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So it's this feature called flow orchestration. So flow orchestration was released a couple years ago, from what I've told. And if you have multiple stakeholders that are approving processes, this is when flow orchestration may work. I have a screenshot of one of the example flows. So as you can see here, you can have a reviewal process and then stop the automation until there's a review or something in check. And then it can go to a trigger, it can go to another flow, which is flows already have subflows, but the key distinction is having some review step in this flow orchestration. I'm also primarily a developer, so I wanted to highlight some of the Apex roadmap. So one of the biggest changes that was announced was with security enforced, goes to with user mode. So a lot of the Apex is now in user mode, which means that basically a lot of the Apex was run in system, which means you don't have to care about permissions of the user or any sharing rules. But now you have to care about the record access of the end user. So user mode always applies sharing rules. Yeah, so it switches from system mode to user mode by default on version 67 of the API class. And also the API, the recommendations is to be within the last 3 years or 9 versions back of your API for your Apex API version, which is also hard to do. We had to keep on deprecating the previous classes. Also a very cool feature was multi-line strings. So it's a triple tick. And before, to do a multi-line string, you would have to do +/n for each new line, which was quite repetitive. And also a big feature is elastic limits for asynchronous Apex jobs, which can go over 100% on asynchronous Apex, which is super important for larger organizations running a lot of Apex code. It basically in-queues different queuable jobs for future usage, which is pretty awesome. So you don't have to pay for more compute. You can try using this elastic limits feature. And that's my recap from my end from TDX. It was pretty awesome. And should I move to OIT?
We can talk about questions later on. Any questions on TDX recap on developer side?
Two questions.
Q&A.
Just click on the Q&A.
I'm going to go to the Q&A tab. Okay. Elastic limits. Do you need an explanation, or did you understand from my explanation? Michelle Norman.
Yeah, no, I didn't understand it. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. So elastic limits basically means Salesforce has 100%, like there's a compute threshold, and once it reaches 100%, the Apex jobs basically get canceled, and it'll start firing errors. So elastic limits will allow you to not fire those errors, and it will increase over 100%. So those jobs will happen at a later time through this queuable and future jobs, basically, up to 2 times the license limit.
So it just moves it from foreground to background?
Kind of, yes.
It's sort of low priority.
Low priority, it push it out for the future jobs.
Yeah, it pushes it for the future, essentially, on queues them, like in a queue.
This is only specifically for asynchronous Apex.
Yeah, through asynchronous Apex. Yeah, for asynchronous Apex code.
How does it know what your license limit is going to be, that it's not up to 2 times? In other words, when it executes later even, it comes its turn in the queue, now it's executing again? It could just execute forever like that.
Yeah. What do you mean by execute forever? What does that mean?
Well, it goes beyond the limit, so it gets shoved into the queue, and then it comes back, and then it goes beyond the limit, so it gets shoved into the queue, and it comes back.
Yeah, but this is going to be only for, yeah, I mean, you can technically go, it's like more of like a temporary measure when you're doing a lot of processing at once. Like, for example, if you have a lot of asynchronous Apex that's running like at a baseline, for example, in my organization, or some organizations, you can use like, there's like logging or Stripe transactions or different things like that that are like routine. And then sometimes they can be those surge scenarios. So in those surge scenarios, elastic limits can help you avoid those errors.
Yeah. Another point is, like, even if you rolling it over, I understand the question, but you have only up to 2x. So the goal is over there is not to just keep on exceeding it. It's just like a flagging it for you, say, hey, let me increase the limits, right? Just in case, for example, you never accepted anything to Stripe transactions. So you are just executing X number of transactions before. Now with accepting the Stripe transactions, you got 50x now. Transactions have increased multifold. So even if you want actual limit should be 5x, like, so you need to go back and go with the licensing side. So we're not talking on licensing side here. The key thing is just to say is, okay, before they used to fail, they will not fail now, kind of thing.
Yeah. I hope
Yeah,
that.
a very urgent thing if this fails.
No, yeah, but it's rather than rigid fail, like basically you think it's passed, not passed, and all the stuff. So it helps you from that perspective. At least it's in a queue. It's just giving you kind of a heads up rather than failing it, I would say.
Yeah, as Eric says in the chat, the elastic limit only applies to asynchronous Apex. Synchronous Apex executes immediately, blocking the thread, forcing the users to wait. Asynchronous Apex runs in the background when system resources become available.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that makes more sense. Thanks. The other question I had was, when you make these changes, what you were talking about before, like with Agentforce, you're asking it to change permissions in your example. Does that show up now in your setup log that somebody did that, and who did that? Was it Agentforce or was it you?
So I'm not sure. That's from the trail mix. So you can look at that video, but this is also a beta feature. But yeah, I think you have to check that in the org or look at the documentation for that.
Thank you.
I need to fix it. All right, we can switch presenters.
Yeah, you can just change the slide for me and just share the slides.
Okay.
First one should be good.
This is yours.
Yeah, there's one, yeah. All right, okay, let's see, slideshow. All right, so I guess let's talk about the headless. I guess a lot of people are talking about the headless for a long time. I said, okay, let's talk about it. And I've been into it a little bit more. We were developing something on it too, so we can talk about that piece too. A lot of people would have heard, like, I don't know if you missed the Slack keynote in Dreamforce last year. That was from Parker Harris last year when he talked about it. Okay, why should anybody log in Salesforce again? How many people have heard that quote, and what are their thoughts on it? Anybody? Let's make it a little bit interactive session. So anybody wants to say any questions, thoughts? No one? Crazy, okay. So it's not all like you see here, it's not a provocation, the direction, right? So you should understand that where Salesforce is going, right? And why it's going, we'll talk about it. That's a separate, because nobody wants, like, I speak to a lot of people who are using Salesforce and say, hey, I log in all the time. People get stuck up in the login, the screens, and all the different views that you get. Then they got the dynamic layouts and all the fun stuff that came in, visibility issues, permission issues. I can't even see stuff, right? But I think people like, if you go down to a different experience like ChatGPT, Cloud, or whatever it is, or Perplexity, pick up any tool that you use, type in, and you get the answer, right? So people want something user-friendly, right? That's the key thing, right? So that's why it's the direction of Salesforce that's going in. But at the same time, I want answers from, or pick up any tool as again, and a ChatGPT tool. I want relevant information for me too. I just want any answer, right? Kind of thing. So that makes sense? So just to set the stage up, right? So you should understand why we're doing it. And once you understand the why behind it, once you start looking into more details, you'll actually start, oh yeah, it makes sense. Let's go about it, kind of thing. Because it's not killing the admin jobs, kind of thing. But we'll talk about that part too, because Krish was talking about a little bit on the admin sides, like on the developer side things. As you go along, a lot of stuff I do not understand. My background is I'm not an admin. I'm like a kind of like power user of Salesforce, but at the same time, now I'm a developer too. And I'll tell you how I became a developer. So kind of thing. I'll show you what I'm building a little bit, but we'll talk a little bit more about it. Okay, so let's first talk about the traditional architecture wise, right? So basically everything was, the bottleneck was traditional architecture is you have the requirements, you're going to start building it up in the Salesforce ecosystem, right? You move too slowly, iteration cycles are low, you need to understand the permissions, a lot of stuff that happens before you do that stuff, kind of thing. So now with the headless, basically, I guess, like with the TDX recap stuff, you would have seen that kind of thing is, first of all, you should use the word headless as just like English word, headless, right? No head, right? So the no head basically thing is, think like our human body, no head, right? Like not a best thing to say that, but thing is, but you can like think like Photoshop, you're trying to change the image of somebody. Like we've been playing different things. You take any different body, right? Okay, hey, I want to be like 20-year-old myself, or like a six-pack, or whatever it is, right? Kind of thing. So you're trying to change the body to the from the head, that's the UI. So you're trying to separate the two things together. So both things are important, kind of thing, if you want as a package tool, but you just need to understand the definition of we separating the two together. So if people are like other technologies are out there too, there have been headless CMS for the, you want to make a website kind of thing. Before you used to go for WordPress and other stuff, and now there are a lot of headless websites are out there too. So the back end is different, the front end is totally different kind of thing. You can use two different softwares to make it too, kind of thing too. So far so good? And also we are like moving on to the API first ecosystem kind of thing. So the front end is like, so what happens is with the APIs, like people understand what APIs are to pull the information out when you need it, right? So it's when I want to trigger something, I get the information. So for example, I would have a website, I have a customer information or email address, I need to trigger an email to them, but not using from Salesforce, I want to send it from outside of Salesforce. So I can trigger an API to pull the information out and use a third-party system to send an email out, kind of thing. So Salesforce has moved on to API-first architecture. I've been more kind of closely working more with the Revenue Cloud recently. So they were the old CPQ and the new CPQ, what we call it Rev Cloud. Now the Rev Cloud is more about API-first architecture. So what you can do is with the API, you can pull anything out, any specific information you want to pull from any place, wherever you want it, kind of thing. Now, Krish briefly mentioned about this one is you can actually then show any data on any place. So basically, the backend is your Salesforce and other stuff is there, but you can pull any information. I want to show it on my Apple Watch. I want to show it on my 3D vision meta glasses, or you want to have any kind of signage, right? So you can, that's why you need to understand headless. The head is different, the body is different. The body is actually, the data is still coming from Salesforce, like metrics coming in, all the data coming in. Why? Or maybe I think it like this is like, think about Jaguar. I want to buy a car, right, kind of thing. I can buy the power of a Jaguar, but I said, okay, I don't like the body shape of it. I'll build my shape myself. So what people see is a different car, but the engine power is still the Jaguar, or they pick up the engine, the best engine you want, right, kind of thing, right? So that's the kind of concept you have to put in your head. And once you put that back in the head, the engine power is, again, pick up the Rolls-Royce engine or pick up the, what I call the Jaguar engine. But the body thing is, hey, I can design it better, right? That's the thing. And that's what people like. A lot of people like when I see to the users of Salesforce, I say, hey, you know what? I don't need to see the 50 different fields on the page. I want to see only 10. Okay, design 10. And that you can do yourself now. That's a power to you kind of thing. Now, typically, anytime when you use the page load speeds, for example, if somebody has designed, like Salesforce will design a software which is like 50 fields, or you, like, not forget Salesforce, it'll be you are doing it for the whole team. Some people use certain fields. You can't have multiple page layouts for everybody, right? So now, if somebody as an accountant, like I'm background more finance, so I say, I just want to see this 10 fields. I don't want to see the 50 fields out there. But if I had only 10 fields, the page will load faster, right? Compared to typically, if you talk to any programmer, say, hey, I need to have all the 50 fields because I need visibility on this one. I know who sold the deal, right? Kind of thing. So different people have different things, right? So now you can actually, with the new applications, you can design the pages faster. Similarly, if you have an external application, it's even much more important is you want the pages to load faster for the third parties. It's the SEO performance. Everything increases faster. People are getting more impatient, right? So they, hey, it's faster data load because I'm looking for specific information, and that's what it is. Another one very interesting part of kind of thing is, as we separated the two together, like think like we're talking about the car, engine is separate, the body is separate. Now you can have two different teams, right? One team, hey, go and design the best body, right? Kind of thing. Now you can break it down, design the best dash, like this thing that you see, the steering wheel, all the stuff. That's team one. Team two is the engine piece, right? You want to add new workflows. You need to do some other stuff, right? Okay, hey, build some workflows. So the development team at the back end will do that part of the work very well. The front end will say, okay, let me make it so look cool. Let me think about the colors. Let me look about what the people will look at, kind of thing. And going back to my example of what you want to see, like 10 fields or 15 fields, then you go as a person, you go and talk to each and every team. You say, you know what? I will just change some kind of permission on top. The moment your name comes in, you only see 10 fields. Everything is hidden for you. But it loads super fast for you, kind of thing. So that's the kind of concept between separating the front and the back, kind of thing, right? So this is like also is like on the right side that you see is like, hey, it doesn't look like Salesforce, but technically you can get the data from Salesforce and project it like that in the future, kind of thing, right? So that's why it's like unified data. Basically, why Salesforce is so like cool in one way, because if I'm looking from finance perspective, I just want the billing information today. But tomorrow, for example, some customer is not paying the bills to me. I need to understand, okay, there was some service tickets, there's some kind of service interruption, right? That a finance department will not be looking at, kind of thing. So what you can do is, okay, hey, are there any outstanding invoices? Are there any service calls? Like if somebody's unhappy with the service, why would they pay the invoice, kind of thing? So that kind of visibility gets lost if you're just looking through an accounting system only, right? But with this whole, you can create an interaction and when you need it. And that's why I'll talk a bit more. You might need Agentforce, you might not need Agentforce. You like, for example, Salesforce, you can work with and without Agentforce too, right? So it really depends what you need and when you need it, kind of thing too. So basic thing is like the map journey would be like, key thing is like you're talking the API integration kind of thing. We're pulling the data using APIs. That's the front end kind of thing. Let's kind of move on to building the ultimate interface. It's you, right? Like going back to, I guess, best example would be looking at the car, the engine, let Salesforce, like one team, the developers look at it. And nowadays, like one thing I've noticed is as we're going ahead, there are less and less admin, first of all, jobs in the market. And I also, if you see the whole Salesforce perspective as admin roles, and I had not seen this, the demo that Chris showed me, that just to change the permissions and all the stuff. That's the part I hate the most because I am not a kind of super admin, right? What it is, right? So I always get stuck up. So I would look for a tool like that. Hey, I can't see the data. Where this data is missing kind of thing, right? And I guess that's one of the most complex stuff. And now it's making jobs easier, even for people entering the Salesforce today kind of thing. But the front end, the interface is you. That's why I said, okay, go and look at the car. Think about, hey, if I have the best engine, can I make the best car out there? The best shape, right? And you can design it. Like, hey, maybe your kid is designing like a sports car. I say, hey, I wish I could do that, but I don't have the engine with me. Okay, sure. Engine is there. That's Salesforce, right? And you can do anything, you can build anything on top of it. Now, actually, what it also does a lot is if you want to do this thing with Headless 360, if you look at the graph, like typical development time would be 3 to 4 months or 6 months, anytime a project you might do in Salesforce. With Headless 360, you can get it done, a prototype. I actually started working on a small prototype. Within a week, I was able to do some decent shape. But okay, iterating it takes a little bit more time because you want to make it even more robust. But you can start iterating on it, and you can actually, within a few weeks of time, but it will be substantially less time kind of thing. Because I was looking at a very complex problem to solve for the Revenue Cloud and especially for accounting. So if I had to do, like I did something like similar kind of project about a couple of years back for a client, and it took us like a few months before we even got to a happy place. And before, if I could have launched to the client, it would take even more time. But now I could have much better product in 2 weeks compared to 3 to 4 months of like, hey, and again, I qualified that because I'm not a developer kind of thing. But I knew what I needed, but still you to create a custom field, you to do this thing, it was a lot of pain before, but it make much life easier now kind of thing. So people should think it like more as an opportunity rather than like, hey, people say, okay, hey, when I say the jobs are going away from the admin side, take it more like an opportunity because you guys know the platform so well, you know the capabilities. So going back to the engine of the car, you know what it will do well. Oh, you know what, if it can go from 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds, right? Oh, what can I build with that kind of thing, right? Rather than, so you think about the capabilities first. What workflows you can put on top, you know that kind of thing. So all the stuff, so you can actually have all the power together on the engine part. And now on the front end, what to expose kind of thing. So, hey, if somebody approaches the car, the door opens automatically, right? Okay, hey, I know like the key is there, I'm going to go to the car. That's the next possible action, right? Similarly, when you're doing any kind of thing, you can do that stuff too. So basically, when you actually start building anything, the focus would be, okay, first of all is any software, like any kind of like you people are using Salesforce, other stuff in the company, right? Okay, which small branch of it, think like a small tool thing, people have a problem with. Like I'm focused more on finance. Like I said, okay, let's talk about the finance piece, right? I tried the Revenue Cloud, tried to make an invoice. To set up an invoice, I had to go to 10 different processes kind of thing, right? The setup thing, the billing is set up, this is set up, oh, this is not set up, you're not set up this thing up yet. So people have to go through the pain to set it up. But I said, okay, hey, that's why I say, okay, I have a bottleneck. I don't want to spend like 2 weeks to set it up kind of thing, right? I want to set it up in like 1 day or half a day kind of thing. So I started with that problem kind of thing, right? Then you launch a kind of POC, right, kind of thing. And you kind of set up a small thing, try to test it out, set the requirements up, and you can then scale it up later on kind of thing. But the goal is to start thinking small, something small, because thing is, hey, Salesforce is there in the company, like especially bigger companies, everybody using Salesforce, right? People are unhappy, like why people don't get rid of Salesforce, because they need it. It's like an engine for the car, right? I can't get rid of the engine. Okay, we're keeping Salesforce now, but I still have a problem, right? The problem is now you can solve the problem. Before it was like, hey, I have to try to solve in that Salesforce, go back, change the screens, but now you can make it better, kind of thing. So let's do an example. So we actually participated in the hackathon, in the TDX hackathon. We were like the top 5 for the Agentforce for Good category kind of thing. But it was actually using a little bit, I'll show you the architecture a little bit at the back end. So you can have a look at it. And Gabby, this one is for you. I have to add some examples for you to think about, right, kind of thing. So this is, you can see the whole demo. It should be there. Shiba can share the links later on for the demo. So basically, this was last call. What we did was, a lot of restaurants have got a lot of food kind of thing. They waste at the end of the day. A lot of people would like to have cheaper food, and the cost of food is going up. I don't mind just call, I say, hey, is there any food in the neighborhood, right? I can just call the number, right? So what we did was we used a voice agent, call a number, right? And say, hey, I'm at this zip code, and I can actually order some food, right? Either I can do an agent on a website, or I can just call on the phone, because everybody has a phone, right? And maybe I'm going to San Francisco, I'm late for some meeting and all, right? Maybe somebody working late in the night and say, okay, hey, I would like to order some food, right? And something cheap. I don't want to spend like 25 bucks. It's not a fancy food. I just want something to eat, something good. So the goal was to have some discounted food. So that was a win-win situation. The goal was to have win for the restaurants. They can sell and make more money. And on the other side is for people get cheap food. And we also basically avoid food wastage, right? So the architecture was, what you see on the screen was the website. This is a headless agent. So people have seen a lot of Agentforce demos, and they see the stuff inside. The same agent can be exposed on Experience Cloud side. Easily people have done that, but this is headless on any website. And there's no branding on it, but you can add any branding, any kind of style on it too, kind of thing. So that's the thing is, this is the headless agent, right? So you have to think about, a lot of people see the stuff that you see inside your Agentforce stuff. Okay, hey, it looks like a textbook kind of style example, but you have to start thinking for business side, hey, I can use that agent and I can throw it on any website I have. It can be any, it doesn't make a difference at all, right? So that's one of the examples of headless space. On the architecture side, this was basically restaurant, input, supply chain. Bottom line was, it was Slack integration, Salesforce, everything Salesforce kind of thing. Like think about DoorDash kind of thing, restaurant trying to book an order kind of stuff. So we can actually manage the whole workflows, the process, everything is Salesforce, right? So anyway, I'll just move on the slide, but you can have a look at it later. This was kind of where the headless piece comes in. So we had a different voice agent that was connected to a different database. So we use Superbase in this case, but think you could use AWS, you could use any kind of thing in the backend. So the voice agent was connected to a different database. Other side, we had an API sync with the Salesforce platform. Salesforce platform had the information for the customer data, for the restaurant data, for the food data kind of thing. So what the voice agent was doing was, every time you had a question, somebody say, hey, I need some food, like on this kind of, what's the zip code? You say, okay, hi. We also set it up. If you are a new time, or it could identify you as a first time or a repeat customer based on your phone number. It could query the past orders. It could do all the stuff. So bottom line is, just to give you a high level architecture, is this is just a simple example to any database. You can use it for anything else. So you have any third-party tool that you are using today, you can connect to any database. And now you can connect that to Salesforce. And that can be a front end, in our case, the last call, front end was a phone number. That's it, right? But you could do anything with it, right? So the other one that we're building up right now is for the RevOps operation, which you're talking about. Revenue is the most like CPQ. I've heard about stories for CPQ. People like, oh, trying to modify the CPQ. I know people for this SaaS businesses and getting more and more complicated kind of thing. It's getting so complicated. So what we're doing is basically, the reason it gets complicated for CPQ is you've got, billing is not standard billing. Some people are doing flat rate billing. Okay, I'll pay you $2,000 a year. Some people say, hey, I'll pay $500 a month kind of thing. It's like recurring billing. I'll pay you for the year one time. I'll pay you every 3 months. I'll pay every 6 months. I'll pay 1 year, right? I see some nodding heads, because when you try to see the complication, it gets very complicated. For finance people, it gets even more complicated because you have to track the discounts and the commissions and the renewals. And you try to use some other software for that, it gets complicated. That's why you need softwares like with the powerhouse, like that's why it's coming back to the Rolls-Royce engine, that's like Salesforce at the back end, you can manage. Anything you have 10 to 20 clients, you'll still manage it out. It's still complicated, but you can still manage it out. The moment you go more than 10 to 20 customers, it gets complicated. Now add more complexity on top of that, usage billing. You know what, like your people started using API tokens now. You say, you know what, I'll give you, like the business models are changing too, because company says, okay, pay us $20 a month, but pay for the API tokens on top, right, kind of thing. It's a better deal because some people use or not use, kind of thing. At least they're getting $20, right? Compared to people just getting a flat rate. So, and then you say different, and some people might have a very more interesting strategy, how to do the marketing and selling, right? So the thing is, that's why you need a very strong engine in the back end. But the front end is, every company is different because Salesforce is making it for everybody. So the front end, I can customize it the way I want to customize it. So just at the bottom of the screen, you will see at a high level how the thing works will be, you have an opportunity. You're basically optionally getting updated in like the salespeople are doing that kind of stuff, right? Kind of thing. The contract is executed. The billing schedule is like set up all in Salesforce, right? The moment everything is optionally is closed, it comes back, you can pick it up in our platform and you can have a create an invoice. You can manage all the accounting there. To put a cherry on the top, a lot of people don't understand, okay, just talking about the collection piece that comes in, that you have that piece too. And then if you want to get an audit done for financial statements, like when you think like companies like Apple and all the big companies, they have to report very certain disclosures in the financial statements. You can even set that one up too automatically because that's not in Salesforce kind of thing. Because a lot of people will pull the information, put it into an Excel file, pull the data from the like a ERP system, pull the data out and put it all together. So what you can do is say, hey, I know that's a kind of, I don't want Salesforce to build each and everything for me. So I can take the engine, I can take the contract details, the customer details, everything from there, from Salesforce. I can pull the ERP details into my platform and sync it all together and show what I want to show and when I want to show and do whatever I want to do with the information. So just to get a simple screenshot of the platform kind of thing. So we just put a kind of, this is basically, as Krish mentioned, like a Node.js a little bit. On the right side, we have got Salesforce integration to QuickBooks, to ERP, what do you want to do kind of thing. Data is backend, is all Salesforce. Right now, on Salesforce to kind of create a graph like this, yeah, it is difficult today, but they are already in Sandbox. They already launched it, kind of thing. But it's coming in Dreamforce, I believe so, which will basically, you can create any fancy looking interfaces in Salesforce using all this Node stuff. There's another one, there's a gap revenue, because when you're talking about the accounting revenue, the deferred revenue is how much is the deferred revenue is a concept basically. I received the money of $10,000, but I will provide service in the future, right? So very graphically, rather than looking at just the static numbers, I can quickly see the numbers. Oh, why is it the first month? Why is it not a second month kind of thing, right? So I can quickly understand the thing. And so even if you look at the first screen, this is the blue bar is the billing that I did. Second month, the billing is missing. Why? In normal, when you look at the numbers, you might forget it. You say, hey, you know what? The contract started in May 31st, so I billed them in May. I did not have to bill in June. Now I'll bill in July. The light bars are the future billing, right? So as an accountant, like very visually, once you understand it, oh, I can see it started billing, right? Every month I'm billing some amount. I can see the dollar amount I'm billing. On the top, it's total 180K, $15,000 a month I'm billing, right? Boom, right kind of thing. Now the same thing, another two tables below that, you can quickly see, okay, this is my revenue. The first month is no revenue because I didn't provide service. The next month I provided revenue. I've got light bars because it is not yet recognized, but it gets you feel. You know, like you get an idea kind of thing, what that kind of stuff that we build on top of Salesforce. This is again another one that's, hey, customers, right on the top, all the customer data, sync it. You create a customer either on your platform or on Salesforce. You can pull it together because it's one unified platform because everything has to work together. You send an invoice automatically. I know Salesforce has their own billing system, but thing is, some things get clunky, but you can, hey, I found it clunky, I find mine better. You build it yourself, kind of thing. So wherever you see there's a bottleneck, you build yourself, kind of thing. There's another kind of small screenshot of the billing schedule. Automatically, all the bills are going in. You set a set, like you got, as I told you, if you got 10, 15, 20 customers, it's easy. Now you think about 20 customers into 12 invoices, 120. Now you bought into 100 customers, you got 1,200 invoices. Now you just sync it up, who paid you, who didn't pay you the money, all the stuff. It gets very, very complicated. Now, if I had to build this engine myself, it would take a long time because I don't have the power to create the backend for me. But with having something building on Salesforce, I trust Salesforce, how the data will go, all the stuff there. All right. So let's kind of summarize it out very quickly in some kind of the kind of infographic stuff. So headless, right? So we're decoupling the front to the back end. The back end is like, think about your engine of the car kind of thing, and the front end is what you have, right, kind of thing, right? So the data logic, if the fast API connection is there, we can pull the data when we need it, where we want to do it, right? Okay. Next is like anytime, what are we doing is like, Salesforce is building it for, it is like I would say, data has to be like who our future customers are. Future customers are not people who search, like if you, like I don't know, people are start searching in Google and all the places too, but you would have seen any ChatGPT, any kind of tools that you use, right? It shows up with the recommendations and with a link to the citation to something. So the agent is searching something for you. So data has to be accessible by the agent. So basically the new trend that you see is the future is the ICP or the customer profile for a lot of companies is the agents. I want to be found with agents. I want to be shown in the agent query because people stop using Google. Like people used to be, hey, I want to be the top ranking on the Google. But now is somebody searching on Gemini or somebody searching on Perplexity or ChatGPT, my name or company should show up on the top. So that means basically I should be agent searchable. And that's what you have, this CRM records and all the stuff. Like I'm not showing the demos over here, but thing is you can actually pull the data with Agentforce on the OpenAI and other places too. You can actually access that customer data there, kind of thing. So these are like the 4 layers. So Data 360 is the context that we have, people like the old Salesforce, you might call it kind of thing. You got the customer 360, the work that happens kind of thing. I was talking about, oh, I have an invoice in the system and nobody paid me the invoice. Why? It was stuck up because there was a kind of query on the, customer had a problem with the service. So there's a kind of ticket is open and the customer is like angry till the time you don't close the ticket, I'm not going to pay you the invoice, right? That's where the customer 360 view comes in, right? Agentforce is like when I'm doing the, like let's go to Agentforce a little bit later on. Let's go down to interface first. So just using the layers, customer 360 and data 360 will also be basically pulling the data from other orgs too. So what you can do is like, you can pull the data from org to org kind of things. So you have Salesforce org 1, Salesforce org 2. You can attach data 360. And last I understood, like, and Eric can confirm, is it's free, right? You can move data cloud from org to org is free. So what you can design is you can create a new org and you can pull the data between 2 different orgs. It happens a lot for companies that will have is the multi-country org kind of thing. You've got a privacy issues, who can see my data. So you can say, okay, I'll put one org with the data only for my Asia customers, right? And I can manage it over there. I can have another org over here for the corporate. I can have a third org on the top, and you can use Data 360 to move your data all around, right? Kind of based on what information you need, kind of stuff there, right? Interface, the top of the, let's go from the top to the bottom again. Interface would be like your ChatGPT, Slack, all the stuff. That's a Slack bot came in, all the stuff. So you connected everything, data from other places, kind of thing. You either go straight to layer 3, customer 360 and data 360, but now Agentforce comes in. Why you need Agentforce in use case, in my view, can be, Eric can tell more. He's on Salesforce, he's seen more use cases. I would say is, for example, I want a quick answer, right? Rather than me trying to figure it out, right? Hey, the example that I've been using is why this guy didn't also pay me the invoice. If I have to go back and search use cases, I'll ask 5 queries before I get the answer. But on Agentforce, I can just send 1 query and say, okay, hey, tell me, analyze the data, how I get it, right? Why the guy didn't pay me the money. You say, hey, the customer has always been complaining. It'll analyze the discussions there. Another use case of Agentforce would be, I've got 10 orders, a sales order, right? I'm a finance guy. I see 5 orders. I said, okay, 5 orders, I see the money. Now, if I were to ask Agentforce and say, okay, tell me the order that took the maximum amount of headache to get, because all deals don't close on time, right? Because which deal took more time to close? For example, somebody got more commission on deal number 2 and not the deal number 5, Oh, fifth deal was just like a straight up sell, no big deal, because the guy came in, they were so happy with the thing. Deal 2, we had to work a POC, we had to work late nights to make it work for us. Now, that kind of back and forth email communication, all the stuff is hidden in Salesforce data. How would you pull it out? Use Agentforce, ask a question and say, hey, tell me, analyze these deals on this metrics and tell me which was an easy sell compared to the other one. So that's why you need 4, all the different layers based on what you are, kind of thing. All right, so this is the, as I was telling you, the headless piece of the puzzle. The first piece is the interface, where the data shows up. In the middle becomes the cloud code, the cursor, the anti-gravity. And basically, a lot of people, I use a lot of anti-gravity is free kind of thing. So you can have version of things. So another question is paid versions. You can use free versions, whatever it is, to get a prototypes up and running. And what I'm saying is, it is the future is you, and the backend is a Salesforce, right, kind of thing. So the Salesforce, you have a code connected together, but only display what you want to display, which I showed a couple examples to you. So another thing is like speed was the traditional bottlenecks, right, kind of thing, because traditional, if you want to work on any project, because you're not trying to solve the full problem, right? Traditional projects, typically you say, okay, hey, what about this, what about that? For the headless concept is I pick up a very small problem. Like for example, for accountants, I just have a problem with invoicing. Okay, how can I solve the problem for invoicing faster? Kind of thing, right? And how can I solve the problem for collections faster, right? I can add another small app on top of Salesforce from that perspective. All right. This is the full kind of thing. So you can just understand, I just walk you through 5 as let's talk one by one kind of thing, the infographic. All right. That's it. Okay. Any questions? And we have, luckily, we have got Eric over here, who's from Salesforce, who can help me out. Kind of thing, right?
My camera won't turn on.
Well, you can come over here. We're fine. We can introduce you over here. Okay, okay. Why don't you come?
Next to you. Okay, there's probably people in the room here who don't program. There's people who do program. There's admins. There's people who built agents. There's people who vibe code. There's people who don't vibe code. So who's first? We can talk about anything.
So I talked about myself already. I've been vibe coding, my background in finance kind of thing. I didn't use the word vibe coding, but I became like a part coder now.
Yeah.
So my CTO is the cursor, or I pick up a tool. That's my CTO, and that's it.
Yeah, so, and we have sales engineers at Salesforce. We build demos to show you Salesforce and how it works. And customers need solutions that don't come out of the box. And sometimes the easiest way to get you exactly what you want is to build a Lightning Web Component, and we just vibe code it, and it connects to Salesforce. And that's fine. But if you're going to put it in a large org, you need to scale test it. So vibe coding is visually great. Yeah. But what the mistake that I think we're all finding out we're making is people are just vibe coding and they're not doing code review. They're not reviewing it with an architect. And that's important when you have more data in your org, because it'll work on your demo org. And if you're going to put it in production, just make sure it's scale tested. So what questions do you have about Headless 360?
So,
yeah.
So, like, the question that's pops up, like, how do we start with, like, what use case, like, to start with, like, the small ones, like the low hanging fruits.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you can quickly build small things using 360. Like there are many things, starting from we onboard customers, right? There is the first thing.
Yeah.
Out of the very basic lead we get the leads, right? So now it's lead nurturing and then converting it to opportunity. So there are, like, it's an entire life cycle from like lead to getting a revenue, right?
Yeah.
Now the very first thing as a developer, like like I'm trying to wrap my head, like, okay, how quickly I can use this 360, where it fits.
So what you'll find, so let's see, one of my peers described Headless as the door number 3 to Salesforce. Door number 1 was the UI, and it started in 1999. Around 2002 or 3, there was the first API. And now systems could integrate to Salesforce, but it wasn't really, and like Outlook could, like clients could integrate to Salesforce with the API, but it wasn't really designed for what agentic is bringing us, where everybody has 6 agents, and agents everywhere, and agents connect to Salesforce and other things in a different way. They use MCP or A to A, but MCP. So door number 3, headless, means MCP a lot. So, or, you can do, we always had the REST API. When you want to create a custom UI on top of the backend for billing, you're probably mostly using REST to hit the Salesforce org. The headless component is highlighting that in your demo orgs, in your production orgs today, in your sandboxes, since April 15th, TDX, you have an MCP server folder in the setup menu. And you can see right now, there's about 7 MCP servers exposed to you. One of them is to access data in Data 360. 3 of them are about accessing data in CRM. One is a read-only endpoint. One is read-write. One is deletes. And then 4 of them are metadata, and I can't remember the other ones. So today, you can go, those are disabled by default. So as the administrator, you have to enable it. Then as the administrator, you have to create an external connected app. So it's a connected app in a Salesforce org is creating a door that is specific to a client calling in to Salesforce via API. You don't want to have all clients using the same door, because if one client's bad, you want to shut that one down. So that's what connected apps do. So you'll have a connected app in front of your MCP server, and then you'll connect Claude or Slack or Cursor to your org via that MCP endpoint. So to me, that's the easiest way to start using headless, to start using MCP.
That's right.
Is to expose that. You put me in the chair here. I want you to answer too. I don't want to take all your sunshine.
No, yeah, go ahead. Like, I want you to put in the chair for a reason.
Okay.
I said, okay, let people, because I didn't talk about MCP, because in our case, like, I was going to have a very open discussion.
Yeah.
So one of my colleagues, right, okay, shoot the flight. I say, hey, looking forward to a discussion. I said, okay,
Yeah.
let me put some slides together.
Okay, good.
So I was just talking about some couple of use cases that we actually already use it, kind of thing. And what he's talking about is like MCP, which I see was a very great thing for people to get started out. In a cloud, you can pull the data out from Salesforce, start talking about it. But I'm talking about from finance side, from auditability concept and everything. How do I make sure, like, who did it, who made the change? I don't want to expose my data to the cloud directly, or cloud went down. I want to expose it to OpenAI. So that sometimes it might be better. That's why we made another application for finance people.
Yeah.
Now, how do I connect to my what we call ERP system? So I might do a chat, but forget about it. Like chat goes like chat history.
Yeah.
Now, for finance people, we need to have auditability. So that's why in this use case, it makes sense to do that. I'll have a separate use case, right? So every use case is slightly different. So what it is, but I totally agree on the MCP side. When you connect it, you can have use different people. Anybody use MCPs?
Who's done a markdown file? Have you seen? Do you know what markdown files are? Okay, no is a good answer, because when you say no, then I can tell you something you didn't know already. Markdown files. Anybody? Okay. Anybody used Claude or Cursor?
Cursor markdown files, but that was like years ago when I was doing software engineering.
Okay. Were you using it for documentation, or was it an input file for something?
I think it was mainly meant for documentation.
Okay.
I was working on a QA project at that time, so.
Okay. Cool.
Something along those lines.
And then there was somebody in the back who had Markdown or Cursor experience?
Yeah, I use Markdown.
Okay. So Markdown is nothing fancy. It's just a text file. It's not markup, it's Markdown. HTML, the M is markup in HTML. Markdown is, somebody invented Markdown as a casual, simple way to put structure into text files. Agents use something called skills. And you can have an audit skill for finance. You could have a billing review skill. You can create skills to tell the agent, hey, every month I need to close my books. To close my books, I need to call out to this system, look at all my closed orders, look at all my returns and reimbursements, and total them all up, and then do a summary for the month, and that's closing my books. I don't know if that's what it is, but that's sort of close.
Well, whatever it is, right? But bottom line is, you can set up the sequence that you want it in it, right? And that's a skill.
And so
because
you're
teaching a kid. Yeah.
And so Markdown skills are used by Agentforce, by Slackbot, by Claude, by Cursor, all the agent tools out there. You can actually use a Claude Markdown file in Cursor. You can use a Claude Markdown file in Slackbot. So if you want your Slackbot to do a review, I downloaded 2 nights ago. I went to mcpserver.com. I Googled, hey, can I get a skill file for an account executive to review their pipeline? And I searched, and I had to give them my email address. But then I said, yeah, I want that one. And I downloaded it, and I loaded it into Slackbot, and I said, Slackbot, analyze my pipeline. And it says, you have 42 opportunities that are out of date. There are no next steps filled out in any of the opportunities. And your biggest deal apparently appears to be this one. Do you want me to help you move that one forward? And I said, yes. And, so my point is, everybody wants agents to do things. There's lots of examples out there. After you use it 2 or 3 times, you'll probably feel like it's close. It's not exactly what I need. We don't use this field in my Salesforce work. We don't use next steps on opportunities. And I'm not a salesperson, I'm a sales engineer. So I don't really need to review the deal in the same way that this Markdown file does. So let me edit the Markdown file, save it, and now it's custom for me. And so that is how you get your agents to use MCP. You have to describe in your Markdown file what's there and tell it what the skills are and tell it every time you want to look up opportunities, use this MCP endpoint to go query Salesforce and get opportunities. You can query by name, close date, whatever. You can tell it these things. And I think that's how you get started using Headless.
Yeah, just to add a point over here, you mentioned, right? He went to Slack to do about that. So that's what we built it up. I'm not sure the demo thing. We put it out Slackbot, also our own Slackbot to query the invoices or send this invoice out. Because sometimes you get an idea, why would I log into somewhere else to do this stuff, right? So what are the key things typically you say, okay, as an accountant, you would do, okay, hey, tell me the outstandings today, which 10 invoices went out today, because automatic stuff is happening, right? So you don't want to log in and see stuff. So you can, if you're using Slack, you can use that. And if you're with the MCP stuff, you get connected to Claude, which is totally different thing. If you don't have a tool like what we are building kind of thing, you can say, okay, hey, tell me what happened. What are the new leads came? Talking the leads, right? What are the 10 leads came in from the form, web to lead form that's coming in? What are your processes? So the thing is you start thinking is you don't have to log in to think. That's why you start think. That's what I'm saying. It's good to come to the session today. That's why I was telling one of the guys, I say, hey, we'll have a second session because this is like a thought process. You have to think it over. You have to change your paradigm shift a little bit and see what you can do with it. And then you can create that. And talking about the Markdown file that you're talking about, if you go and it's like a text file, 2 stars, and 2 stars becomes, that means it is bold, that kind of stuff, right? Something small kind of thing, right? So, but good that people don't know, talk about that. And if you talk about MCP, people are not very familiar with that. Think like USB-C cable. So you see, my computer is connected to this thing, is with a cable. It's just a cable connecting from one to another piece. Think always, when you forget about all complicated stuff like USB-C cable. So I'm connecting a cable from Cloud to Salesforce. And now the pipeline is what permissions I'm giving them. For example, talking about read-only skills and other stuff, right, kind of thing. And also the best part is with the Markdown files is you create version 1 today. And like you said, oh, I'm not an accountant, right? I picked up something from the web. I threw it in, right? The answer, now forget about what it did. Look at the answers. And you say, okay, that's the only evaluation. And say, okay, did I get the right answer back? No. Then you go back and say, okay, I didn't get this right answer back. I need to go back and update my skill file, add that skill. Next time, it's going to read that file again and give you the new answer back. So you have to iterate a few times to see, okay, hey, and eventually, over a period of time, you'll have a way perfect Markdown file or skill file for your company, right? And in the future, 80 to 90% of the use cases will be done. But at the same time, the human never goes away. You have to remember that too, right? Because whatever answer came back, he would say, okay, hey, go ahead. Shall I close these 10 opportunities because they have no activity on that? Yeah, sure, 90 days, no activity. But you have to go back and scan through it. Maybe one guy was traveling on a yacht for the last 6 months. They say, okay, hey, I'll come back, $10 million opportunity there, right? So you need to still see that stuff. So that's a lot of if people are start thinking is slightly differently with AI, is to how it will enhance my work better. So now you can analyze the data better, kind of thing, and all that thing that can be like standard rules, you can put them into, like you talk about the markdown file, it will do it for you automatically for you, kind of thing, at a high level. Make sense?
So the markdown file, content of the markdown file is in what language?
The text is a text file.
English, you
It's a
just
text
describe
file.
it. It's like you're writing, it's like you're describing to a new hire, this is what your skill is in this job. I need you to be able to alphabetize books. The way you alphabetize books is you look at the first letter of the title and you go through each one, you whatever, you just describe it. And they're probably our best practices on defining a markdown file. I don't know what they are. Every tool that I've worked with that uses skills also will help you create a markdown file. So you just tell it what you need and it'll create a markdown file and you just iterate on it. And so some night after work, you're like, oh my gosh, I do this one task all the time. If I have access to the data via an MCP connection between my desktop, my agent, or my Slack bot or whatever, and Salesforce or Workday has MCP servers or lots of tools, Google Workspaces. If you want to ask Claude or any agent, hey, what did I do this week? And can you summarize it for my boss? It will do that. It will go look at your calendar. If it has access, it'll read your email. If it has access, it will look at the documents you created if you have access. And it will say, you had a very busy week this week. And it just tells you what the summary of the week was based on how you described how to summarize your week in the markdown file. Yeah.
Markdown file, it's the .md, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's on, when I publish something on GitHub, right? I usually have AI fill that out.
Yes.
Better at explaining it, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't really familiar at that time when you said markdown. That sounds familiar.
It is. That is where I've seen it too. Yeah. So GitHub is where you do source code submissions for source code control. And the README file, which is what the main pages of every repo, is a markdown file. And it's bold, it has bullet points, it has italics. And if you were to actually look at the text file, it's just plain text, it doesn't have bold. But once you save it and it renders in a browser, it comes with some simple formatting. So is there a question?
Yeah, the question, like, why don't we look at the question together? Like let's start from the beginning. I don't want to. Okay, let's look at this one. Does the MCP need to, Michelle, you can ask the question directly too, kind of thing, all the questions. No, Michelle is, okay.
So I'll just read it.
Yeah.
Does the MCP on Salesforce or any MCP server need to be intentionally used? There will be a specific API key to use and it will be validated or rejected. That's true. So the MCP endpoints, which are sort of like REST endpoints, API endpoints, they're sitting waiting for a listen for what you can do. But more than a REST endpoint, they also document additional tools and prompts that are available on this endpoint because agents like to use tools and prompts. You can enable it, but still it's not accessible. You then have to create the related to your key that you're mentioning, Michelle. You have to create an external connected app, and the connected app has a secret, a public client ID, and a private secret. And that's only MCP clients like Claude, Cursor, Slackbot. They can only connect to the MCP endpoint on Salesforce if they have the client secret. So a developer has to intentionally connect both sides of the USB cable to this process. The client has access to it and the server is producing it. And so just because you've created the MCP server does not mean that anybody can access it. You have to actually, the accessor, the client, needs to have the key put into it. I went to Claude.ai on Wednesday night and I tried to connect my demo instance of Salesforce to MCP. And to do it, I went to add a connector in Claude.ai. It said, what's the name of the connector? What's the URL? And then what's the key? And so I had to put all those in. And once I did, I was able to save it. And now I can just access Salesforce whenever I want to from Claude.ai. So good question.
The three things you said: URL, connector, and the key.
Yeah.
The secret key.
Yeah.
And also the application that I was building, like Eric mentioned before, is a connected app kind of thing. And connected app, you'll have the auth all there, basically the same thing. You have the same information set up. They know the env or environment variable file kind of thing. But once you set it up kind of thing, that's why you know the data is in sync with each other. And if you have an incorrect key, and who would have that? Somebody who owns the org, because I can't connect with a third-party org, which I do not know.
Yeah.
So you have to have access to the org, admin permission sets, and once you set it up, and I don't know, there are other security restrictions, you can set it way you want it, kind of stuff.
So then the question from Banu was, how does MCP find the right tool? Salesforce has 50 or more MCP tools. When you send a prompt from the agent, how does it know which one? It's a good question. Right now, there's only 7 that are GA, and they're all deactivated until you activate them, but you will find that there are more and more becoming GA. There is a GitHub repo out there from our Salesforce product management team that shows you 50 MCP servers and what's coming. And so those are being developed and approved and reviewed and tested and things like that. So once you enable them, and then you make a connector to inside, or somehow you make your agent, your client, aware of the MCP server, I think the answer is in your markdown file, you tell it which MCP server to go use for specific use cases. I think that's the answer. Banu or anybody else, do you know better?
So if I can relate to this one, so let's say when we build an agent, right?
Yeah.
So when we write the instruction, we mention we provide first a subset of action, right?
Yeah.
Action does something.
Yes.
So and then in instruction we map use this action
Yes.
to that thing,
Yes.
right? So I haven't done a.
No, I think you're
hands-on,
right. And now that I'm remembering this, what is so important with agents and MCP servers is the descriptions you put on the prompts, the descriptions you put on the MCP servers, because the way MCP works is you say, get me opportunities from Salesforce. And the client sends, get me opportunities from Salesforce and a list of MCP servers over to the LLM. And it says, which of these tools is the right tool for this answer? And the LLM replies back and it says, it looks like this tool is the right one. And then the client says, okay, great. Let me apply the same question again, and let me send it to the tool or the endpoint that the LLM told me was the right one based on the description. So yeah, it's important to have your descriptions of your MCP endpoints and your actions and your prompts be accurate to say, what is the scope of this endpoint?
And also the skills.md file gets important is rather than trying to look at, pick and choose your own tool, you can specify only use this tool.
That controls scope.
Right, so how do you control the scope? I say, okay, hey, somebody asks a question about what the question is, deletes, forget what other, looks similar, because if a lot of things might overlap, like in say Salesforce, got 50 reports. You say, okay, if you do this, say go and get this, use this tool to connect, and then based on that, automatically have instructions already set up for you. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's why the markdown file, the skills file gets very, very important kind of thing. And okay, that's why I was telling you again, another word you need to understand is evaluation, right? So you ask the question and basically it asks a skill, it went out, gave a wrong answer. You say, why? Maybe something is wrong. Okay, then you iterate it. Then you change that skill file. Next time you get a better answer. Not good enough. Okay, I want to make it better. So you keep on making better. So the key thing is, the whole thing about agent, like even for the chat too, like you keep on updating your prompts kind of stuff. And another thing, a small thing that people don't understand is the prompt that you write and the system prompt is slightly different, right? So you can enhance the prompt kind of thing too. So you say, okay, hey, ask, tell me the opportunities. Okay, like one word, right, kind of thing. Something you can misspell it too, it still works, right? But you say, okay, make it a better prompt. You say, okay, hey, it'll ask, okay, what's your role? As a sales guy, looking from a finance perspective, because you have different views of different personas. So you need to explain. So that's a different kind of prompting stuff. So the moment you give that, okay, enhance this prompt first, and then you ask it kind of thing. So you can have a system prompt slightly different. So what I'm saying is that but that's sort of the basic key concepts. So if you understand it, and you don't have to write your system, hey, what's the system prompt for this? Ask Claude or anything, hey, okay, I want to get the latest 10 opportunities. Okay, write a system prompt for me. Copy that. Now you apply this prompt as the next step. Now you can attach those things in the skills file. Okay, every time I ask a question, go and make a system prompt and then ask a question. Don't go direct. So that's the thought process behind it.
So let me go through two more questions. Apologies to Dana. You were the first person to ask the question and we started from the bottom, but let me wrap up with your question. So Michelle said, when do you use an integration user to isolate the particular class of users from other integrations? How does it apply to headless? Does anybody here use integration users?
Yeah. I mean, general, like, connect with other systems.
Yes.
Just
Yep.
one user.
Okay. And so are you using, just to be super clear, are you using a Salesforce CRM user or an integration user?
From the license perspective?
Yeah.
I guess it's a Salesforce license. We consume
Okay,
Salesforce
right.
license.
So I've been here. I've been at Salesforce for 22 years. And I live down the road, and I talk about Salesforce with my parents and my family and my brother. And, so this is fun.
We are happy that you were here. So we are talking about Salesforce.
Yes, and I'll stay longer if anybody wants to stay longer. It's $1,200 to $1,500 a year for a CRM user, and it is a best practice when you're connecting other systems to Salesforce not to use an admin user because they have view all access. But people originally, but people for years, until about 7 years ago, they would allocate one of their full CRM users towards the SAP integration or the Workday integration or the whatever. And, but that's a lot of capability in that license when you're just using it for API. So 5 or 7 years ago, we wanted to encourage better integration. And so now every org has 5 included licenses of a special type called integration user. And so those are the users you're supposed to use for system to Salesforce connections. When you first turn it on, it has 0 records access. It has no access to any object, any field, anything. Because we want you to create the connection in a way that is limited. If orders are syncing between SAP and Salesforce, only accounts and orders should be exposed to this user in case for some reason somebody gets access to be able to use this API endpoint and tries to access other things, it's really locked down. So please, this is a technical debt remediation task, but if you have users that are full user licenses dedicated to integration, you can free those up, do it in a sandbox first, free those up, and suddenly you might have 1, 2, or 3 more licenses to give to your salespeople, service people, without consuming, and also have your integration still going. So that's an integration user. Then the question is, how do the integration users relate to headless? And I would say that integration users are best for system-to-system integrations, and where that, and why would you not use them? I'm gonna dance a fine line here between what a customer might want to do and what Salesforce licensing master subscription agreement wants you to do. What Salesforce wants you to do is go ahead and build custom UIs, but have people log in as themselves. Because that way, when they click save, it says, Eric updated the record, maybe through your custom interface, maybe through something else, but you don't want to be the alternative approach, which is you could create a user interface that gave your whole consulting group access to your Salesforce records and not give them logins. Because you could use an integration user to say, show me all accounts, opportunities, and cases. I'm always going to log in as integration user number 1, but the front end that's sitting in front of all this data is called the professional services lookup an opportunity app. And everybody who pulls it up, hopefully they're authenticating to something, because otherwise they're looking at your CRM data unauthenticated to CRM. And the question is this a secure entry point to your data? Can somebody automate downloading all your data off of this website because you just left it open to save some money on Salesforce licenses? So what Salesforce doesn't want you to do, and it's called multiplexing your user, and it's to create an app in front of Salesforce data using a single integration user where you can manipulate data not using a Salesforce license. SAP has the same restrictions. Microsoft probably has the same restrictions. Everybody, we want to make sure you're buying our licenses, but we also want to give you the licenses that are affordable for the right use cases, depending on what you're allowed to do. Headless, I can now log in as my existing user and have access to everything that I can see and nothing that I'm not allowed to see. But I'm using my user license. If I were to use an integration license, it would have to be one license with permission to see not just my data, but your data and your data and your data and your data and your data. It's almost like a license that has view all data.
Yep.
And now once you have view all data, you guys are managing the security risk on your point because you bypassed the Salesforce security and you know how we are so afraid for you, for your security with all the multi-factor authentication we're making sure that you turn on in your orgs. Like there's many things that have to be in place to keep your data safe, and using a integration user for headless, where you're putting an experience in front of multiple users, I'd say is not the way to go. You can try it, but I'm not responsible. I would say try not to do
basically,
that.
it's like
It would not be a secure way.
It would not be typically, unless you're an amazing security architect.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
why I said headless is great to put an internal extra use case, right?
Yeah.
Like in my case too, you still need a license because when you're writing back, it says who's updating the thing, who's sending
Yeah.
it out. Your name will not show up. I think integration user will say integration user 1
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's good to access the data, but when you're writing it, other writing back is the issue.
Writing for sure. And accessing too. I mean, I work for a company where if we close a big deal at Disney and you don't cover Disney, you should not be able to see that. Or should I, as a user, be able to see the global forecast for Salesforce? And should I be able to see if we're going to make our number or not this quarter? I should not. And I'm a public company. So even for read access on opportunities and cases, those are the ones where there's a big.
Another thing is like they have like a platform licenses too that
Yeah.
you can still still have a login access and everything's covered
Yeah.
there. If somebody doesn't want to see opportunities, they can use the cheap
Platform still doesn't give you access to opportunities. You can
Well,
see any
but-
cases you created.
But that's
Yeah.
what's the limitations on that? Like for I don't know opportunities, not sale. What else?
It's
accounts,
basically
contacts?
accounts, contacts, custom objects, cases, activities, events. But it's for not sales and not service
Not sales, not
and not
sales.
marketing.
Not marketing.
Those, if it's anything outside those and it's custom objects, then platform licenses could be used for your users if they did.
It's slightly cheaper licenses because
Yeah.
if you do not looking at those things. So for example, some people just want to see a dashboard, like accountants, they don't care for the sales stuff. They just want to see the dashboard. But if some accountant want to see opportunities and more drill down stuff,
Yeah.
then they will need a full license. Sometimes just people want to see certain things. You can cut down some cost there too.
Okay, so one question, since we are talking about the cost,
Yeah.
so whenever this AI related, like the agent related,
Yeah.
use case comes up, the key things comes up like how do we estimate the cost?
Yes.
Versus like doing it via any automation.
Yeah.
Versus the agent. So one use case that I use day in day out,
Mhm.
but I'm not able to convince it to build it in
Yeah.
agent. Like the one I'm gonna talk. So anytime like we create like any record, let's say opportunity and line items got created or order got fulfilled, and because of that fulfillment we have to create licenses. Like I'm talking in terms of a SaaS company where we deliver a
Provisioning.
license, right?
Yeah.
License to customer to enable their products.
Right.
Something went wrong, it didn't fulfill, license didn't generate something. So how I am doing as of today, like using like mix of automation plus AI. So I download the log, I reproduce it, like and ask user to okay, let's reproduce, collect the log, and then I feed it to cursor. Like, oh, this is my log. I have my entire repository in my like the GitHub repository in my local. I have given it's indexed in cursor, and I like gave like okay, this was supposed to happen, but it didn't happen. Where did it fail?
Yeah.
Tell me like because I go figure it out. Okay, at which point of line in the system it failed, what error it occurred. I mean, I can do that, but now it's saving me time. I feed log, I give that this is supposed to happen. It has already access to code. It reads, it goes line by, it simulates, but it stopped there and it asks me like, okay, I see there is a query. I don't know at that point of time what data was returned from that query in your Apex code, right? So at that point, I have to run the query, fetch that, and again feed it to cursor. So I came up with a solution like, okay, have a MCP server like, that like simulates your again entire transaction from the beginning when order got fulfilled till seven, and then it will tell you where it failed. If it has to query that like, in simulation, it will query. But the challenge is like, in this to and fro, how many queries fire, what action it does, whether it will change any data. So how to like estimate the cost like to for this entire like this is just one use case like how do I put like okay this is if I have to remove this manual effort entirely and just feed all these information at the beginning and let it like autonomously decide okay this is at this line it failed. So how do I evaluate the cost?
Got it. Okay, I'm going to answer that in 5 minutes. So, because
question of 5 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Anytime I'm going to just sort of wrap this up a little bit. I'm going to go back to the last question and we'll come back to cost because it's worth talking about. Salesforce, for years, customers have said, why do I have to pay for a full license even though some of my users are only seasonal? And we're like, sorry. I mean, we can give you a discount, but you have to pay for the licenses all year. And then big data happened, like 2012, 2000, maybe 5, 10, 8. Facebook and Amazon, the arrival of Amazon Web Services and Azure made it possible so we could store terabytes and petabytes and so much information, and we could create data lake houses, data lakes. Salesforce was, as a CRM, was very relevant without that information because people had data warehouses and they had their CRM. But then people started buying Snowflake. We have Snowflake at Salesforce, Databricks, and they started creating their own data lake houses. And now there's intelligence in the data that's in the data lake house, and there's gravity building in the data lake house where data is being sucked out of every system into the data lake house. And so Salesforce, for 2 reasons. One was, hey, not everybody that is a Salesforce customer can afford to pay an architect $300,000 a year to stand up a data pipeline on Snowflake, plus the $2 million it takes to run Snowflake for a year or 2 or something like that. So let's create an on-demand data warehouse, data lake house, and we'll use it for a couple things. We'll use it for single view of the customer, but also just general data processing. And we'll make it just like AWS and Snowflake, it'll be consumption-based. So now Data 360 is consumption-based, and Agentforce, every time it runs, it doesn't always do the same thing. Sometimes it does an LLM call out, but sometimes it doesn't. It calls straight with the flow into Salesforce, and the flow calls are free. The Data 360 calls are pretty cheap, but you are hitting CPU time on Data 360. As the LLM calls have some token credit, I don't know what they are, but there is a cost there to Salesforce. There's a cost to Salesforce when we use Amazon, which is where Data 360 resides. So now things are consumption-based, and people are saying, how do we figure out how much it's going to cost? So we'll talk about that in a second. My shorter answer is, it's really cheap to build a prototype. Build a prototype and look at your billable consumption in your org and get a feel for your use case. That's the most accurate. I can talk to you about it ahead of time, and I will talk to you about it next, or we can whiteboard it. But that's the high level answer is you probably just build a prototype and it's pretty cheap.
You guys are here, we can talk it offline.
Yes.
Okay. Let's take another question.
So Dana's question, we have maybe 21 minutes left here. Headless 360 seems to be shifting more toward a pro-code development model compared to Salesforce's traditional clicks not code approach. How do you see the role of a Salesforce admin evolving in that direction? All admins should start coding. No. So the whole industry, which is really led by Claude and OpenAI and Google, want everybody to believe that the answer for all and Microsoft, the answer for all solutions in the future is you custom code your apps. And at Salesforce, we're custom coding apps. We're using Claude, or in our development organization, the guy who wrote the Agentforce Vibes plugin is a huge Cursor user. Before we hired him, he was a sponsored Cursor evangelist. Like he would go to meetings like this of Cursor users, and he would teach people how to use Cursor. So we're using it for programming. If we extrapolate 5 years down the road, and let's take the extreme case of a company who said, we want to use Salesforce only headless. It's got great forecasting or opportunity management, quoting tools, but we are Windows users and we want to use a C# user interface and whatever. There's just some choice that, or we want our users to have a single console that does everything. For their role, if they're in finance, they're going to look at this. If they're in sales, they're going to look at this. But it's a UI that we're going to manage. You can vibe code that. And then if you call Salesforce support, we're going to go, I don't know. I can tell you the API is working well. And by the way, anytime you want to modify that UI, you have to vibe code it. And then you retire.
True.
You are the vibe coder, and somebody else is like, well, I can take my Claude and I can look at his code and I can see what happens. And that will probably do a pretty good job. But there's a bit of if we look at the whole spectrum of all the complexity levels of all organizations, my hypothesis is that 50% of organizations are smaller than 200 employees. Salesforce only has, I don't know, 5,000 to 10,000 customers that are huge, 5,000 users and above. And those companies, they have resources. They have Snowflake, they have programmers, and especially if you are a software company yourself and you sell software, you have developers everywhere. Google for years has built a custom UI on top of Salesforce for their YouTube content moderation that all happens through Salesforce. Very impressive. And if you can accept the responsibility of managing the more technical user interface that you've created, okay. I worry long-term that if too much is programmed, now Salesforce's value has always been, we organize your data, and in two key areas in particular, sales and service, marketing, if you're using Marketing Cloud, you're in there too. But there's process and vocabulary that's standard across Salesforce orgs and across a company. And also what's good about the UI, that any UI that gets created, it parallelizes the delivery of information. So UI, I don't think is going away. I do think that lots of thin work, lots of quick work, lots of approvals or insight work, I think that's going to go to agents. Your use case of analyzing code, that's insight. Tell me where it's gone wrong. So insight work could go to agents, but then I don't think it's completely going away. So what is the role of an admin? There are tools like Mesh. Mesh is a Salesforce administrator agent. And you can say, my sales leader needs a new custom object to track risk on deals. It needs to track A, B, C, D. We need to review the risk every quarter. Can you make me a solution? And it will say, sure, let me make a plan for that. And it goes through and it starts thinking, and just like Cursor, it starts generating the object definition plan, and it starts saying, and a flow would be a good idea here. Let's trigger a flow on a scheduled basis. Let's schedule the flow every quarter. And this is the plan. Do you want me to build it? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna go work in your org. I'm building, okay, it's done. Do you want me to load some test data into your org? Yes, load 10 records, please. Okay, great. Do you want me to make a dashboard so you can actually review the progress of your risk assessments every quarter? Yes. And it will do all this generation for you as an admin. You pay for it, of course. That is the extreme end of building. But building is not architecting. Is it, how many times has a salesperson said to you, I want 4 more fields on my opportunity, 1 for each product that we're gonna sell. What happens when you have a 5th product? We can add another field. 6th product, 7th product. Okay, no, stop. We need to re-architect this. We need a related list of products on the opportunity. We're not going to add a new field for every time you want to do something. This is now a related record because it's unbounded in its size. That's using architecture to advise your business partner on how to do something correctly in Salesforce. So I think as an admin, you need to be advisors for your business users. They're all doing things like right now, like saying, why don't you just do it, vibe code it, just make it so. And you can say, it's not supportable long-term, it is doable, but you didn't review the architecture. This has to go through design, through the experts of your center of excellence, your team, to make sure that's going well. So be an architect for Salesforce, be a solution architect for Salesforce, know how cases should function, know what a good data model is, know what scale problems can be created in Salesforce so you can advise your users on whether or not something could be a problem. And then the other thing is you're going to have IT and your product team saying, I want to use MCP. And you're going to say, great, I can enable MCP for you on Salesforce. We have two options. We can give you read-write access based on your user. Your users are going to come in with a certain level of access.
Hi, sorry, we lost sound. Shiva?
For testing to prove no mistakes. There's no undo. The third thing is if the MCP servers, and you can expose any auto-launched flow on your MCP server. So maybe you'll create a flow for your developer that gives them read access to 7 fields on the opportunity and write access to 7 fields on the opportunity, because we don't want the agent to take liberties and go update the description and rewrite things, because I don't know that it won't. Only if the skill is very good will the agent stay focused. And even there, I'm not sure. So I think the role of the admin with MCP is to allow access to MCP servers, but question the scope of access that the agent should have access to when it's editing. And I don't think the admin job is going away, and I don't think the developer job is going away. And do admins have to code? No, but as my bosses are telling me, we should all see what's possible.
True.
We should try, like, on, where can you get this? There are skills for Salesforce. Oh, they're coming with Agentforce Vibes, May 15th. Agentforce Vibes is going to have some Salesforce admin skills, building, creating Apex, stuff like that. Those same markdown files, you can put those in Claude, you can put those in Cursor. We don't care where you use these, but you should try your projects using AI, because I think you'll have fun doing it. It'll be faster. However, you still need to validate your work when it's done, because everybody has examples where AI built something more than was the scope of the project and made it more complicated. And you really need AI to stay focused and only build what you want it to.
Okay. I guess like
Go for it.
time out for the people, because like, okay, hey, what we'll do is, as I said, this is like a first session. We might do a session number 2 later on. This is like more like a thought-provoking session for people to know what is possible and love people to see what they have built. So we may do a session 2
Cool.
and come back, show and tell, and say, okay, hey, what is possible? Because go back to the example of the car, because you're talking about from Salesforce side of things. Even if the car, the engine is there, what's the power of the engine and what it is, like depending on what engine to put, like what kind of body I need, what kind of thickness. So that's, again, still you need to see the power of it, kind of thing, and see what is possible. All right, and at that note, I think because it's already kind of overtime, kind of for people, a lot of people are on the East Coast and other places too. Right. Any other last comments from anybody? I guess, Gabby.
Yes, I just said I'm interested in doing projects. So yeah, show and tell. That sounds great.
John Chow, and I know I know you're the smart one out there because you posted on LinkedIn. I'm looking forward to it. I know you're enthusiastic, so let's talk offline too. But next month, maybe, or month from now, let us see. Let's see what we can build and show. All right, everybody. Thank you. You say all safe? All right, guys. Bye bye. Hi, Michelle. Yep. Anything else?
No, I just thought it was awesome. I have a lot to learn, obviously.
Yeah, okay, so lot to learn, but thing is, like, there are only few things to know. Like, for example, if you put it on a piece of paper, there are 20 things, maybe concepts. And like you learn about a concept or what the markdown file is. Now you read about it, you become a kind of decent expert on what it is, right? That's what it is. So you check, and you are much better off than a lot of other people.
I guess one thing is that admins have to be AI ready. Like they have to be trained in AI. So there's going to be more demand of AI with admin with AI skills rather than just plain admin with no AI skills.
Yeah. I have the Agent Force Specialist certification and the admin certification. Those are the only two I have.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, Michelle, you have got an admin cert. I don't even have admin cert, but still, I'm coding, right? And basically, my background is finance. So
I
look at
think
the business
it's like
use
those
case.
projects, right?
Yeah.
If we have those small projects that we build as a portfolio, basically that's what speaks more than just,
Yeah, I have to play with it.
All right.
All
Have a
right,
nice one,
so
guys.
nice to have you here, participate, and I think we all enriched ourselves by doing this meeting, attending this meeting and participating. And so thanks very much for spending your Saturday with us.
Thanks very much. I'm looking forward to part 2.
Yeah, looking forward to having you. Thanks, Gabby.
Thank
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, everyone else. Bye.
Well, 2 people know about that.